Welcome to the Wednesday, June 19th, 2019 Wareham Conservation Commission meeting. Mr. Baptiste, will you do roll call, please?
Yes, members present. Alicia Hurd. Myself, Kenneth Baptiste. Rob Lassen, Jim Smith. Chair Sandy Slavin, and Agent David Pichette.
Thank you. We have continued hearings, Pharmacana, Massachusetts. Anything on them? Is that the one on Lower Main Street parking lot? I saw that the, was it planning or zoning dropped them? So we're waiting to hear officially from them that will not be doing the parking lot?
We're waiting to hear officially, so since we have not, I would either table it until one of their representatives comes. They are due in...
Oh, they are due.
There's one right now, actually. We can maybe ask Brian if he knows what the story is.
Brian, Pharmacana, are they coming before us tonight?
No.
Do they want a continuation? We'll continue.
Yeah, continue it. I know it's been dropped from ZBA, but I'm not sure. Bill, maybe Bill will know.
Okay.
Bill will definitely know.
Motion to continue.
Wait, can you
Okay.
table that for a minute? Bill, is Pharmacana going to come in tonight?
No, we're actually going to withdraw the application. I'll file a letter with conservation.
And then we get it, we'll continue it until the next meeting to receive that application.
The
Fine.
letter.
Okay, all right?
You can withdraw it tonight if...
You want to,
Yeah, let's get it done.
We'd prefer to.
okay,
I spoke with her today, and that's their desire at this point in time.
yeah, I saw Shelley this afternoon. The applicant has made a request to withdraw their NOI. I need a motion to accept that withdrawal.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, bye-bye. The next public hearing continuation is Gary Osmond. Anybody here for that one? Mr. Bichette will read to the project. Oh, please identify yourselves for the record.
Ryan Grady with GAF Engineering.
Maureen Thomas, Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Steve Kelleher, Stephen Kelleher Architects.
Thank you.
Okay, so this project site is at 18 Maritime Drive, and the project involves the demolition of an existing cottage and the construction of a new dwelling, garage, septic system, and grading. And this is in the buffer zone to a coastal bank, bordering vegetated wetland and coastal flood zone. The existing 24 by 24 foot cottage is to be demolished. And the existing paved area adjacent to the cottage is to be removed. And this is, again, within the buffer zone and within the flood zone, zone AE elevation 15. A new dwelling and garage are proposed. We had continued this hearing months back because the original plan that was submitted did show the garage to be within the 30-foot no-activity zone. So we had asked to see if revisions could be made so that that work would be moved outside of that area. So we do now have a revised plan which shows a different layout, but it does still show work within that same area. So I know this is a new plan for the commission to be looking at this point. I had spoken to Brian Grady, and at the time, I don't think the new features were all staked out yet. I'm not sure if that's been done yet. So At this point, I might recommend that the hearing be continued, just so that the commission can see this new plan and see the features identified at the site, so you understand clearly where this work is proposed in relation to the existing structure.
Excuse me, I have a document dated August 7th, 2018, which you just passed out. Is there something more current than August 2018?
Let me see, yeah, no, this is May 23rd of 19. Maybe that one got mixed in with,
May
Yeah.
23rd? Okay, so this, what I have here is an old.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Would you like to add anything to Mr. Pachette's comments?
Yes, I would highly recommend that everyone take a site inspection to view the existing cottage as it sits in relation to the resource area. It's actually sitting in the coastal bank. I'm guessing that that bank was probably partially shaped during the construction of that cottage originally, but the new location of the house has been staked on the lot, so you'd be able to see that, and you'd be able to see where it will sit in relation to this coastal bank. So it's behind the existing cottage. We're not occupying any of the footprint of the cottage or of the paved area, which I guess we could under your bylaw, but that would actually force us to move the development closer to that coastal bank. So I would urge you to go out and visit the site, see the location of those stakes. You'll see that it's fully behind the existing structure. It's behind the paved parking drive area, which is going to be removed. And I have just a couple other handouts that I can give you tonight before you go to the site. First is just a couple of photographs for those of you who may not have been there already. You'll see the site, and the second is just an aerial photograph location of the project.
Thank you. I was out there a year ago? No.
yeah,
When were you first here, a year ago?
probably somewhere thereabouts. Maybe not quite
What a
that.
quaint house. December. I think that's when I was out last. Hmm? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're fine with one. Thanks.
Gee, this is about the same picture I took.
So what I just gave you, first thing of those site photographs, you'll see that it is a modest cottage, and there is a paved area in front of it. In that first photo, the top photo on the first page, you can see an orange flag on one of the stakes. So when you go out there, you'll see the location of the house. Now, what's staked in the field is the main portion of the foundation. It doesn't have, we haven't staked out the deck or that little bump out that's on the foundation, so just keep that in mind. But you'll see that everything's behind the existing cottage. And the second page on those photographs, you'll see the top one is a front view or the water side of the cottage, which has a walkout basement on one side. So that area that you're looking at is a coastal bank. And on the bottom side, that slope that goes down to that overhead garage door, that's what we're calling a coastal bank. So in conjunction with the other figure I've given you, the aerial photo showing the cottage in relation to Little Harbor, you'll see that it's approximately 390, 400 feet from the cottage to the open water at Little Harbor. I haven't walked all the way to the water, but I imagine there's a small coastal bank at the marsh, and then you come inland to this, another coastal bank that you'll see at the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland. And then there's the coastal bank that the house sits on. So it's either a secondary or a tertiary coastal bank on the lot. So in my opinion, doesn't serve the function of being a sediment source as one of the performance standards of a coastal bank. It does serve a function of, for flood protection, a vertical buffer to floodwaters, but we think that'll improve after the project. Because right now, the structure sits on the coastal bank. It's well within the flood elevation with that walkout basement, walkout garage. So when the project's completed, all that structure will be removed from the flood zone. It will be removed from the coastal bank. And that hole, that basement hole, will be filled in with sand and a uniform slope created. And any structure will be removed out of the flood zone. So we think we'll actually be enhancing flood protection. So I just give you those things to familiarize yourself before you go out there. And just keep that in mind that, the distance we are from the open water, yes, we meet the technical definition of coastal bank, but the performance standards aren't really applicable here because of the distance to the open water. And in that cover letter I gave you, just a summary, what I think are some of the important points is, David's correct, we do still show some activity in the 30-foot, in your 30-foot buffer zone. But when you tally everything up with removing the cottage, removing that paved drive parking area, we have a 36% reduction in impervious area within that buffer zone. So by locating the dwelling, which is going to be a year-round dwelling, Mr. Kelleher can speak to that. This is going to be their year-round home. So by moving it behind the existing cottage, behind the paved parking area, getting out the cottage, taking out the pavement, we're reducing the overall impervious square footage within that no-disturb buffer zone. And Mr. Kelleher can address a little bit with his design on the home.
Steve Kelleher. I'd like to give you, Chairman, a copy of the plans, and then I'll go through them.
While you're passing it out, why do we have two 30-foot no-work zones?
I was thinking the same thing.
You have two coastal banks.
Two coastal banks, or
The-
three coastal banks, or, sorry.
For everyone's reference, this is the view that is available on the lot. And basically, we've designed an aging-in-place house for this couple. The couple are in their mid to late 60s and plan on retiring to this location in Maritime Lane. The house is 2,800 square feet total. 1,800 square feet is on the first floor, so that it would be one floor living. The guest rooms are on the second floor. It's basically a Cape-style house. It has a two-car garage, it has a mudroom entrance, it has a front porch with a swing, and basically all the rooms are lined up to take advantage of the water view that's available in the front. So the house doesn't end up to be fairly long, but the fact is, you want your kitchen, you want your dinette, you want your dining room, you want your living room, you want your master bedroom, all in a row, to give you that view for your aging in place, living into hopefully the next 20 or 30 years. And of course, there's a deck across the whole front of the house, and this prow of the deck is behind the existing cottage. And everything is behind the existing cottage in an X zone. It's not in a flood zone, it's in an X zone. The second floor, the couple have 2 grown children and hope to have a lot of grandchildren. So the second floor is got a second master bedroom and a kid's bedroom and 2 bathrooms for about 800 square feet on the second floor. The house is 27 to 28 feet tall, so it's not a a huge structure. It's basically a Cape-style house. And it also is going to be as close to net zero as we can get. It's got a 10 kVW solar panels on the roof on the south side, which should basically take care of all their electric needs. And most of their stove and their heating system hot water system will be gas as natural gas. So we hope to get the electric to net zero, and so their only bill will really be gas and nothing for the electric. In the future, we hope to take the 10 kVW and buy a Tesla battery system, so we'll get 16 hours of use out of the solar PVC instead of just 8 to 12 hours that you would normally get. And I'd like to pass out to everybody and read into the record.
We share. Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, we have this in our
We have
mail
this,
already.
yeah.
Can I read it into the record?
Sure.
Down to Mr. Smith, please.
Dear Commissioners, members, we recently met with Gary and Karen Osman and their planned project at 18 Maritime Drive in Wareham. We are abutters living directly across the street from the site. Plans involve removal of the existing structure and construction of a new house with necessary setbacks. We have expressed their respect for conservation and have developed a project that we feel would complement our neighborhood. We are hopeful that their plan is compliant and the existing regulations will be approved. Sincerely, Thomas L. Gleason and Catherine C. Gleason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, I'm Maureen Thomas, Buzzards Bay Coalition. I am here in support of the Osmonds proposal to install an innovative pilot nitrogen-reducing layered soil treatment area, also known as a layer cake. This would be the second layer cake in Wareham that the Conservation Commission has considered. The first one was at 53 Long Beach Road. That one has already been installed. So in addition to the environmental benefits to be realized that were explained by both Brian and Stephen, as far as removing a structure in impervious area and a net zero home on the property, the Osmonds, while they're required to install a nitrogen-reducing septic system, they're not required to install an innovative pilot that has a record so far of removing more nitrogen from septic effluent than most of the other nitrogen-reducing septic systems that have been installed in the town of Wareham. Of the 5 systems that we have installed so far throughout the watershed, they are showing on average an 80% total nitrogen removal rate from septic effluent. So there are some considerable environmental benefits to be realized as a result of this project, and we hope that the Conservation Commission will approve this so that we can install some more systems and move these layer cakes through the piloting phase through provisional use and onto general use, because they are doing really well and they're very similar to conventional Title V systems as far as costs go. So there will be more opportunity for other people to install these if we can test some more of these. And we have been working with the Osmonds since December 2017 on this layer cake. It has been approved by the Board of Health and Mass DEP through their site-specific pilot process. And we would, of course, submit revised plans to the Board of Health and DEP if you approve these revised plans. Thank you.
Questions from the board?
None. Nothing, sounds good.
No.
Mr. Bichette, can you, one more time, what is your concern other than they're working within the 30-foot no-work zone, no activity zone?
Yes, that's essentially it. The regulations speak to new projects within those areas, that's not supposed to occur, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
There's no chance of moving that house back a little further outside of the 30-foot? In its own entirety, just push it back?
Well, there's a view shed that they're trying to take advantage of that currently exists.
And by moving it back, you'll lose the view?
It will be affected, yes.
And it'll cut down most of the trees on the site. Where the house is now and where the house is being planned, there are very few trees. It's mostly yard. We push it back, we have to start now cutting down a forest, which doesn't seem to me to make sense.
Outside of the 30-foot no activity zone. That means, in one case on the, north, south, east, on the east side, it means that whole section of the house has to be moved back, almost up to where the leaching field will be, if I'm reading these plans correctly, which means the leaching field would have to be pushed back into the proposed driveway, which means the driveway would have to go to the tree line. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
In order to move the house back, you gotta
cut-
give up the driveway, get off the woods that are behind the proposed driveway,
And you lose all the screening, and
screening.
screening from neighbors and so forth, and privacy.
Well, it's the existing trees that are there. So several things are occurring here. They're trying to work under your bylaw, which we believe this plan in front of you does allow. And they're also trying to preserve that wooded area that Steve's talking about. So as you mentioned, if to move the house back, you move the system back, you move the driveway back, so it's a domino effect. Everything moves into that wooded treed area. That's why, Dave recommended, and I recommend as well, that you may want to visit the site, because once you see that, in my opinion, you see that coastal bank, so-called coastal bank, it meets the technical definition, but I think once you look at it, in my opinion, I think you'll view this project favorably.
No, they lose by twisting the house, they lose the view, which is what they're particularly looking for, is the vista that will come from the part of the house that faces Little Harbor.
Yeah, it's the view that exists now, and has existed since the house is built, so they're just trying to preserve that, and relocating the house might require coming back to you with some sort of vista program, vista pruning program.
They ever had, flooding?
Into the mic, please, sorry. Before
Did they
Mr.
ever have any flooding from, say, Hurricane Carol, 1938, all of those areas in this area? Because I know that, that the water did come up, on Great Neck Road at that time, and from what I hear. But, so I'm wondering, has this property, these different 30-foot zones and everything, been flooded with, I know it's in an X zone, but has there been flooding of this property?
I don't know the history of it.
No, but the house was 1925, and the cottage is still there after the
Well,
38
no, but that's,
hurricane.
they flood and the cottages stay there and, that sort of thing. It was not a year-round house or anything. I just was curious if you knew that when we're talking about the different, three different levels and all
Right.
that.
I don't know the history, and the Osmonds have only owned it for 3 or 4 years now, so I don't know if they would know the history either.
The Gleasons would probably know.
Their house was pretty.
Well, I don't know, when was Maritime
no.
Drive put
Yeah,
in?
Maritime Drive was,
Didn't exist
no,
back
25
then, yeah.
years. No,
Right.
probably about 25 years.
Well,
But
is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak for this project? Against this project? Make a recommendation that the members do visit the site, just so you're comfortable with what they're asking us to do. And did you have to add something else? Your hand went up.
Yes. The first floor of this new house is at elevation 21 and a half, which is substantially higher than
Yeah,
the elevation.
If it goes, most of Wareham goes. Yes, I totally understand that one. Okay, Would like to continue until some of you have a chance to go visit the site. Is that all right with, I mean, the idea is that take this plan with you and see where the house would fit and what it would take to move it back out of the 30-foot or substantially out of the 30-foot. Okay? So now, we're going to continue, but before we continue, I need to say what is our date we're continuing to. Our next meeting is July 3rd. Is anybody going to be here for July 3rd meeting?
I don't think I have any plans.
Many more trips for a while.
So it looks like we're good for July 3rd. So we're going to ask to continue, I need a motion to continue this one until July 3rd.
So motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Giving our board a chance to go out there and visit the site. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Come up.
Nope, we're up to 7. We're going into our meetings. Ms. Hurd, will you read the first hearing, please?
I would be delighted. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, general laws, and Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, June 19, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Scott and Tracy Denton, 8 Burgess Point Shores Road, Wareham, Mass. 02571, for the removal of trees located on Assessor's Map 21, Lot D, Burgess Point, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Come forward. Anybody here for this particular hearing, please come forward and identify yourself. And do you have the green cards? Do you have the butter notification cards?
I don't know what those are.
Do not know.
The green cards, you're supposed to send out registered letters to your abutters notifying them of this hearing? I guess that stair says...
I never received anything that told me to do that.
Yeah, that was in the directions for the request for determination. That was right in there. That's just a standard requirement of any hearing that the
Okay.
butters need to be notified, so.
It's the only one that we're missing is John Deacus, right? I would assume?
I honestly don't know how many abutters there may be, just because I haven't researched that, but that's something that'll have to be followed up with
Okay.
after the discussion.
If you go to the assessor's office, give them your address, they will give you a list of the abutters. My assessors?
Right, it's the abutters to the land
Land.
that the project is on.
Not your land, but the land the project is on, because I think there's some on either side, not just Mr. Deacus, but on the other side.
The other side?
Lydia, no, what's the, Lydia Island?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Bichette will read to the particular project. We do not have butters. I think I have that.
You have that?
You want to share, or you want to,
So the project site is at the Burgess Point area, and the project involves the removal of trees within a coastal flood zone and within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. Approximately 12 trees are proposed to be removed on the conservation property that's owned by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. This is the property that recently the commission gave approval to have large numbers of trees removed from the site for an ecological restoration project. As part of that review, trees were marked to be removed and some to be preserved, so that it was clear which trees would be removed during the project. The applicant, Mr. Denton, abuts the Buzzards Bay Coalition property and is seeking approval to remove 12 additional trees within that property that he says infringes on the view of Onset Bay. I did look at the site and the trees in question, and In my opinion, the trees to be removed would not make a huge difference in the view, especially during the summer, because these trees are mixed in with other, these are evergreen trees mostly, and they're mixed in with deciduous trees, so there's so many trees there that these couple, to me, aren't going to make a big difference other than potentially in the winter months. Also, some of the trees proposed to be cut are within the 30-foot no-activity zone to the wetland. So I do think that, again, this is a situation where some members should go and view the site. I did that and got a better appreciation for the site and the trees that are proposed to be removed. But I would say that I would have to recommend that anything proposed within the 30-foot no-activity zone not be approved. So given that we don't have the abutter cards, I would recommend a continuance, and that would also give members a chance to review these trees proposed to be removed. They are marked at the site with orange and green bands on the trees, so you could identify them. That's all I have at this point.
And the easiest way to access this is go across the conservation restriction in front of Mr. Deacus's house on Winship and walk the trails,
Or
or see Mr. Denton for
that's probably the
a
easiest.
heightened view, a view from the house, the deck overlooking the
Absolutely.
site.
You'll all be most welcome to come that way.
We are going to continue it. Is there any comments you'd like to make before I ask questions of the board?
I guess I would just first start with a thank you. I really appreciate that you came to the property, a couple of you, and as Mr. Pichette mentioned, his perspective did change, and I welcomed the conversation we had this morning, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions on the board?
No.
Now, if they're marked, I guess we can.
I sort of have a question, and that is, I know this house was on a garden tour, and that was really nice, and I did go up to see it again. And I'm wondering if your goal is this for view, that you want the trees taken down? What is your goal with it? Or is it because they're dead trees? Are they, the why?
It's a combination, so thank you for the question. Yes, vista enhancement is part of the project, and we think it's a small
Very
bit,
small.
and given the hundreds of trees that are still there, and I appreciate you mentioning the fact that we are planters, not cutters, because that's what we are. I had mentioned to Mr. Pichette today that I'm most willing to, for every tree we cut down, to plant a different species that would be better for the property, because we're looking at mostly pitch pines. Some of them are diseased, and some of them are pretty,
Very good.
not such great-looking trees, you know what I mean? So they're not even fun to walk by, never mind trying to see through. So last point I'd make is that the trees that, as you're looking at the photos, that are on the left-hand side down the footpath, do in fact, because they are evergreen, allow in the summer a better view of the dock, which we now share. We didn't used to share. It was a big part of the project. We felt as though that the community needed to enjoy Onset Bay, and when the Buzzards Bay Coalition came to us and asked us to waive our private dock and private beach, we saw that as a way to enhance the community, allow the young people that don't get into the water to come get sailing lessons. And then this year, the YMCA in town asked us if we would do swimming lessons on the beach, and outside of what we had earlier agreed to, and we welcome that. So we see that the overall project not only enhances the land, but it also enhances the community and allows people to enjoy Onset Bay. And we don't really feel like we want to build, it's a fence. I won't say the other word, can get into other subjects. So we don't want to build a fence around our property and not allow people to come enjoy the property. So what we do want to prevent is people from using the dock that aren't supposed to be there, not only for liability reasons, but also just, that's when the nuisances happen, right? So the people that are supposed to be there, the young people that come enjoy it, show proper respect for the land. So we love that.
So by removing those trees along that path, you will see the dock from the house?
We can see the dock,
Like to see-
especially in the wintertime, and it gives us a glimpse of it. It doesn't give me a clean view because there's other trees that are in there in the summer, but it gives me a much better view than I have today. I have no view at all, except for, in the winter, I have a Mets view. And to Mr. Pichette's report, I guess, one last thing I'd add. He mentioned that it is only really, the great views would be in the winter, spring, and fall, but we're a year-round resident, so we love to enjoy the view, not just in the summertime as well, so.
Mr. Pichette, would you be able to give us the plan for the Buzzards Bay project to clearing the trees so we can see where the 30-foot no-work zone is? Because it's not identified in any of these documents, correct? So we would have to see the plan that shows the 30-foot so we can determine which trees are in that activity zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak for this project?
I would just like to say, I'm Mead Binhammer from the Buzzards Bay Coalition. We believe that this request is consistent with our habitat management goals for the property, and we believe that it's a de minimis impact, taking these few trees from the property. We walked with Mr. Denton to flag the selected trees that are identified on the Vista pruning plan map, and we give him permission to remove those trees on our property.
Do we have that in writing at all?
I don't know that we have it in writing, but obviously he's here stating that, and I'm sure we could get an email to that effect.
Is it possible to get something from Buzzards Bay Coalition stating, so we can put it in the folder?
Yes, I will bring that up, yes.
Thank you. Any questions on the board?
One more.
Okay.
You just mentioned, we've been talking about removing trees, and you just mentioned pruning trees in your conversation right now.
Just that the map is identified Burgess Point Vista pruning plan.
Okay.
That's attached to the RDA.
Okay. So, please go out, members, and take a look at the particular trees that are flagged, and so we can have it for the next meeting, and I'd make a motion, please. I take a motion. I need a motion to continue. I have until July 3rd. I have a motion to continue until July 3rd.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on this one? Okay. Next, please.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Richard Pfeiffer, 1623 Lyndhurst Ave, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28203.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, finish.
The restoration of native plants located on the Assessors Map 3, Lot R53, 6 Pinewood Road, Onset, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here for this project?
Yes, ma'am.
Please come forward and identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Richard Pfeiffer. This is my wife, Janet. Pfeiffer is P-F-E-I-F-F-E-R. We are residents of Charlotte, North Carolina. And our resident address is 1623 Lyndhurst Avenue, Charlotte, 28203.
Okay. Richard, I see you have the green cards. May we have them,
I do.
please?
There
The
were
abutters. Yes.
two abutting property owners, and I got the return cards.
Okay.
Yes.
We just need those.
You should, yeah.
Here, we don't, this is an extra. Thank you, and Mr. Pichette will read to the project.
So the project site is at 6 Pinewood Road in Onset, and this application is in response to a violation that occurred at this location, which involved some landscaping work in the buffer zone to a salt marsh and a coastal bank. Some existing vegetation was removed from an area within 30 feet of the top of the coastal bank, and some shrubs and fruit trees were planted in the place of the existing vegetation. This application is being submitted to restore the altered area. with native vegetation, and also to do some planting of trees in the buffer zone, but outside of the 30-foot no-activity zone. So I met with the property owner at the site, and we discussed the circumstances, and he has agreed and is willing to restore the area and has submitted this application for that purpose. The area to be restored would be planted with a combination of northern bayberry, beach plum, bearberry, and other native plant species that are suitable for that area. All the proposed work is to be done by hand. The area that needs to be restored is roughly a 30 by 50-foot area. So I would recommend the approval of this work so that the property owner can restore the disturbed area with native vegetation. And that would be a negative determination number 2.
Anything you'd like to add?
Madam Chair, yes. My wife and I purchased 3 contiguous parcels in 2016 on Pinewood. At the time of the purchase, I was not aware there was any restrictions on what you could not do to clean up your property. I worked from parcel number 2 Pinewood, 4 Pinewood, and 6 Pinewood. 2 Pinewood was all woods. It was obviously a dumping ground for people's leaves, and these green vines were everywhere. You couldn't even see through it. So I spent a lot of time. I got all this out of there. I've been planting a lot of plants in there, planting a lot of plants along Pinewood. Then on number 4, where the house is, behind that, to our neighbors in the back, there's all sorts of stuff. And we have a fence line with our neighbors. And our neighbors are Jeff Gorman and Sue Ann Morley, who are the people that told me when I got up here in May that I might have a problem with what I had done. And so I got on, and they talked about something called the Conservation Commission. So I got on the internet and I found the office, and I came in on a Monday, a month ago, and asked if the administrator, Mr. Pichette, wouldn't come out to the property to see what I've done. So I guess my activity from 2 to 4 to 6, at least 2 to 4 is fine, but at 6 I probably should not done that, I guess, what you're telling me. I did not know this 30. In fact, if anything, I thought I was improving the property because there was poison ivy. Vines were everywhere. These big vines that grow up trees and pull down trees, and these green vines and these other, in fact, there was a couple of pine trees. In 2017, I cut all the bottom of the vines out. In 2018, I came back. My wife says, "What are you doing with that tree? It's dead." I said, "It's not dead. It's the vines that are dead." It took me 2 days to climb up there and get all those vines, because you just couldn't pull the vines out.
It's called bittersweet.
So,
They're nasty.
okay, well, thank you. So, obviously, had I known there was a law that said I could not do this, I would not have done that. I did a lot of work, and I'd rather not be here before this commission, but I'm here. Mr. Pichette has been very kind. When I first came in with an application, he nicely said, "What are you doing? You're not doing it right." So he showed me clearly what I had to do, and I did. And I basically said, "You tell me what I have to do, and I'll follow your directions." So thank you very much.
Thank you. I did visit the site, and I took some pictures of your fruit trees and your plantings that went up to the marsh. Anybody want to see them?
If I might point out that there was I think I've said in the application, this house was built, I think, in 1979. The basement was dug out, and all that stuff was put in the front, and I'd leveled that. And I probably planted about 18 trees there. There's some lindens, there's some dogwoods, I've got about 4 butterfly bushes. In fact, one of my intentions was to get more pollinators and plant them in the area. And then last year we did start seeing some monarchs show up, so that was good.
Okay. Questions on the board?
No.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak for this project? Against this project? So my understanding is that all the plantings that have been done will have to be removed, or some of them, outside the 30-foot can stay?
Correct.
And where does that line go?
Pretty much along there's a crushed shell or stone path. So basically.
From the stone path,
Back.
so that if I take a look at this, and all of these plants would have to go, if that's correct?
Anything that's non-native, I would say that would be the case. And again, the area would be restored with the native vegetation.
That's in the 30-foot zone.
Right.
Do you know where the 30-foot line is?
I come to understand it. Mr. Pichette has shown me.
Okay.
Now, if I do have a question.
Yes.
If I am to remove those items that I planted, so
Where does he put them?
well, I have an idea. But when he was out there, said, don't do anything of this, I'm not touching it. So I was waiting, in fact, I was going to start taking stuff out, but I was told not to touch it. So I need directions as to when may I start to take what's there out. If you just tell me, I'll follow directions.
Once the commission makes a vote, then shortly after that, once you get your paperwork, then you can begin to do that work. So you will get a formal decision from the board, and then after that, you can proceed with,
So nothing until I hear from you officially.
right.
Thank you.
Is this all grassed in?
The question is, that around the house, it's not grassed in.
Near the shed?
Near the
What?
sh-
Near the shed.
They're
What's
questioning
around-
your drawing.
What about my drawing?
Ask the question,
The
please.
question is, what is all around the shed? We're sort of trying to figure out what in front of the house?
Oh, in front of the house, it's, there's some old, the big rhododendrons, some big holly, and I put gravel on their area. I planted a Japanese maple there.
That's in front of the house.
Yeah, right.
Facing the water.
Oh,
On
no,
the
front of the house, I'm sorry. In front,
Sorry.
I was understanding the front,
This is the water.
it's the definition where the front of the house is.
All right, there we
I
go.
was referring to the house, the Pinewood
My
side.
fault.
That's no, but
Yeah.
Pinewood side's what I was referring to. And the other point, there's some grass there, but then that other area there is where the sand was leveled, and I planted probably 18 trees, 4 or 5 butterfly bushes, and things that just look nice.
I would be concerned about replanting as it comes into the summer months, or should we wait until the cooler September?
Well, it really is just a function of how well it's watered and kept, but if the commission wants to give him a time frame in order to do the work, then that's up to the commission.
Normally, how long's the time frame once he's received his paperwork? 3 months, 4 months?
I would say 2 to 3 months is typical.
Well, if you don't want it done in the summertime, 2 months takes us not far enough in. We have to put maybe 6 months or 5 months.
Well, he can do it whenever he wishes to. It's just a matter, again, of how much watering he
Yes.
wants to have to do, so.
And we don't have, this is just a request for applicability, so we can't put conditions on it. It's just that, think about the weather when you replant, I guess is that. So, no questions, no other questions? Nothing from the audience? I'm hearing, want a motion?
Close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, the hearing's closed.
Thank you.
Nope, not done yet.
Um,
I need a motion for a -2 on this project.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Is approved. See Mr. Bichette with the final paperwork before you do any work on the site.
Uh,
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to ask a question I don't know the answer to, so it might be dangerous. What's a -2 mean?
That means it's approved.
Okay.
I know, negative is in.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okey dokey,
Right,
next,
next.
please.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, at 7:15 PM on the request for determination of applicability for Gateway Motors of Wareham LLC, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to remove storage building, install security fencing, install site lighting, and minor site improvements located on Assessor's Map 6-1, Lot 1034, 379 Main Street, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you.
Do you want the writing, will you be handling that? You want the big one or the little one? Matt?
The little one's fine for
Little-
me.
Thank
Same
you.
thing.
We have the green cards. Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of Gateway Motors LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Bichette. We'll read to the project.
Again, the site is at 379 Main Street, and the project involves the removal of an existing building, the placement of crushed stone in its place, the installation of underground utilities and fencing, and this is within a coastal flood zone and within the riverfront area of the Wankinko River, and also within the buffer zone to wetlands. The existing 20 by 40-foot shed structure is to be removed from the site, and then crushed stone is to be installed within that disturbed area. That structure is approximately 45 feet from the edge of the wetland and within a flood zone, Zone AE elevation 14. The existing open area is proposed to be used as a used car dealership, providing an area for approximately 35 cars. It's also proposed to install fencing around the perimeter of the site, and as it's shown, this would partially cut into the 50-foot no-activity zone at the site. Also, the wetland boundaries that are shown on the plan are not really wetland delineations, but they're just depictions of wetlands taken from a Mass GIS website database, so as to whether or not they're accurate is a bit of a question. So I would recommend that those may need to be looked at more carefully, especially if that's what's being used to measure the 50-foot no-activity zone from. It was stated that no vehicle repair or detailing would be proposed as part of this project. That certainly would be a concern, again, regarding how close this is to the edge of the wetlands and the river. So that's essentially the project. The only issues I had, as I said, was the accuracy of the wetlands boundaries that are shown and how the fence layout is shown where it infringes into the 50-foot no-activity zone.
Excuse me, I need glasses.
Must have been.
I should take out the big plan.
Yeah, I know he spent a ton of money cleaning
Mr.
that
Madden,
place.
anything to add to this, to his?
Not really, it's an accurate, I had a couple of things, but I mean, it's an accurate representation of what the project consists of. I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. It's the old site of Franconia Fuel. The three structures of the buildings that exist on the property have been renovated over the years, and the new owners of the property wish to create a site for used motor vehicle sales. And as pointed out, there's display area for 35 cars down on the site itself, let's call it. There's two spaces shown in the front that are outside of the resource areas. There's also a box indicated on there that shows an additional display area for 10 more vehicles. We're scheduled before the selectmen for the Class 2 motor vehicle sales license next Tuesday. In there with the selectmen for that license. With respect to the wetlands, we did use Mass GIS in this instance, coupled with a site inspection to look at that wetland that's more to the north. It's off the site, it's off property and what have you, so it wouldn't be necessarily appropriate to flag the wetland resource on that property. We did not think that it extended into the site, into our site. There's also noted on the plan that there's an existing drainage swale that's at the rear of the property, just to the, I guess, to the west of the proposed fence line. When we looked at the deed description of the parcel, they had a description of that area to be used as a drainage easement. However, there was not any indication of the width, the type, who the beneficiaries were. I mean, they just said that, the deed just read that the property was subject to a drainage easement to the benefit of the abutter, which was, I don't know if it was CVS at the time. My recollection was that that deed was written in advance of the CVS being placed there, but there's a couple of things that are shown in that swale, particularly that check dam, that would tell me that maybe that's not really 100% accurate, that I don't really know when that drainage swale got put in. Could have been part of the cleanup when Franconia Fuel once was there. I'm not real certain. But in any event, we thought that the MassGIS data was a reasonable representation of what the wetlands were on the site, and where we weren't proposing to do any real construction, so to speak, on the property, felt that that would be suitable to use in this particular instance. The issue with the fences for security purposes on the property, we do desire to place that at the property line. There's quite a bit of activity between the CVS to the north and quite a bit of activity to the south of the site. A lot of people traversing across the property and what have you, and it's really a goal to restrict access onto the property, particularly with the introduction of 25 or 30, 40 potential vehicles. So that's really the purpose of the fence. We realize that it is within the 50-foot no activity zone, but I'd also like to point out that under the DEP wetlands regulations, that the installation of fencing in the buffer zone to a BVW is considered a minor activity in general and would not necessarily even warrant the filing of a notice of intent for that work. So understanding there is a bylaw in town, but we think that security is an important element here. We don't think that it would be we don't believe it creates a situation where the landowner would clear up to the fence and conduct additional activity on the site. We look at it as more of a deterrent from activity, as you might, as in the past you've conditioned fences to use as a landmark for people moving, for people on particular pieces of property. But we think that the vegetation that exists there between the fence and the dealership or the car lot would act as some element of screening as well, and that's something that we would propose to retain. I think if we wanted to remove it, we would have come forward with that as part of our notice. I'm sorry, the RDA. The lighting that's proposed, it's just three light bases with lights along that northerly property line. The utilities that would be required would simply be underground conduit and wiring to operate those lights. There's no detailing, no automotive maintenance or any of those types of things proposed at the property. All those activities would be carried out on site, so we don't see any adverse impact from uses. It's truly a display area for used motor vehicles. Additionally, up toward Main Street, there's four parking spaces that are on existing bituminous concrete pavement. Those will be marked out. There'll be a little bit of work done up there to create a handicap accessible ramp to the building. There's 2 employee parking spaces indicated as well in that area. And no surfacing is proposed, no drainage, additional drainage other than what's shown on the plan. So it's essentially really a cleanup of that area, a little bit of improvements on that north property line and the display area for the vehicles.
Thank you. Any questions on the board?
No.
No.
There'll be no paving. You're going to be, the particular vehicles that will be on display are on the existing type of hard pack that's there.
Yes. A portion of it is paved, and a portion of it is like recycled asphalt.
Yeah.
So we're not repaving anything. There will be no line painting for the display areas. We're just going to park those vehicles tightly together. The crosshatched area that we have indicated between the two rows of vehicles was really just there for accessibility's sake, for customers to view the vehicles that they may be interested in purchasing.
Snow removal on the site, where will the snow be placed?
It can probably be placed just about at any open area on the site. It's owned by one group of people. There's no other leaseholders on the land. There seems to be a fair amount of room on that site where you might see where that note reads existing wraps, storage, and parking. That's more of a circulation area that if you had to move a vehicle out for a test ride or for someone to view it, that would give someone an opportunity to maneuver in that area. But it also can serve as a snow removal area or snow storage area as well.
Do you expect any cleaning or detailing of the vehicles on site?
It's all going to be conducted off-site, detailing and washing and detailing.
Okay. Now, for the particular wetland lines, don't we have them, didn't this site come before us not too long ago to do the cleanup in the back under Fitzgerald?
I'm personally not aware of it. I did note that there's a certificate of compliance request on your agenda tonight for this property. So perhaps that plan could shed a little light as to what the boundary is. I did
I
not.
was going to say, I wouldn't think that the wetland lines would have changed much between then and now.
Let's see what it shows.
Well, give us a minute
Sure.
while we look at it, because if they're close, Will you stop smirking?
That one doesn't show it.
Is there, either of you have questions? You were talking with each other when I was asking.
No, we
Nothing?
familiar with the site, what's been done on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great cleanup considering what was there.
And it's gonna be nice to see it actually used.
Well, it was used, you just haven't saw everything, because
Yeah,
everything was in the
well.
buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's, yeah, there was a lot of activity there.
Location for existing gas service, oh, that's the gas line coming in.
Yeah, this doesn't show it
She's looking at the,
Doesn't show the wet,
gonna say, I don't see that.
where the cleanup work was, and
Yeah.
this is the corner, and it just doesn't show it, so.
so there's the 200-foot riverfront.
Right.
Okay.
That's,
Are you concerned about the lines coming from SGIS that would be changing the condition of this property?
Not that it would change the condition, but depending on the location is going to determine where the 50-foot line falls. So if it's further in than what that shows, then the 50-foot line is going to come further into the site.
So-
That's the only reason why I was pointing that out, because again, it's not a formal wetland line that somebody went out and flagged. It's just,
no, actually, isn't that wetland behind the Dunkin' Donuts and stuff?
it's sort of in the corner between
Yeah.
the two sites. Not the one you're talking about, that's really behind Dunkin' Donuts, but that ultimately comes down into this particular corner and then flows underneath the railroad tracks right there.
So what they're looking for is a corner of this 50-foot no-work zone to be, which to install fencing. No vehicles, the removal of the
existing shed is outside the 50-foot, correct?
A corner of it
A corner?
could be in it, and if the wetland was a little more extensive, more of the building
would be located in it.
But that building's got to go.
We're taking that building down, and
Thank you.
and as part of that building being removed, we're going to remove the source of an impervious surface as well and create a little more groundwater recharge through the placement of the crushed stone on the ground,
And a little less garbage and trash in the area.
and a place for people to hide and carry on. And I don't know if anybody lives there or not, but
Didn't have to live there. It's been occupied more than
more than
one
once.
evening, yes.
Yeah.
So that's the only real question is where is the real 50-foot line? And if it's where this shows, we're just looking at a couple fence posts in order to complete the security fence.
I don't have a problem.
Is there anybody here in the audience would like to speak for this project? Against this project? We have no questions from the board?
Motion to close?
I have a motion to close the hearing. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the hearing is closed.
Motion to approve, what would be negative number?
It's a note, -2.
-2?
I have a motion for -2. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Before you do any work, please see Mr. Pichette.
Okay, thanks very much.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. The public hearing will be held in Room 120, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for Sherry Quirk Living Trust, Norma Scogan Living Trust, care of J.C. Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to reconfigure a driveway, hardscape, and landscaping located on Assessor's Map
Here.
10, Lot D1, 65 Arlington Road, Wareham, Mass.
I think I'll take a small one, see what it looks like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
You want a bigger version?
No, I have.
All right.
This is what you gave me the other last
No,
week.
this is a revised plan right here.
There's a revised plan.
Yeah, that
Oh.
small one that you just gave you is the revised.
Okay, thank you.
I haven't had time to do anything. Cemetery's been keeping me very busy. Have you been down there? And what are these?
The paper's around. Give us a second. Okay.
It's a road.
Okay, this project location is at 65 Arlington Road, and the project involves landscaping within the buffer zone to a coastal bank, within a coastal flood zone, and also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. It's proposed to do landscape work, install a new driveway, construct a patio, place fill, and grade around the existing dwelling. This would be done in many areas right up to the edge of the 30-foot no-activity zone to the coastal bank. This would require some tree removal in the vicinity of the north side of the structure. Previously, we had brought this up and asked if that could be adjusted so that the limit of work line would be more closely held to the original project. This revised plan does move the hay bale line to the existing tree line versus cutting into it quite a bit more so than the original plan that we had. Again, on the original project, when the certificate of compliance was issued, there was language that stated that no future work would be allowed to go beyond the existing approved limit of work line for the original plan. So again, that's why the plan was asked to be revised. The driveway for the proposed project is going to be reconfigured, so it would have a turnaround or a loop in it versus just the straight driveway that currently exists. Other features, again, include stone walkways, stairs, walking paths, and a patio. And again, the majority of the proposed work is within the previously approved limit of work yard area from the original project. At the last meeting, we also did not have a DEP file number for the project or comments from Mass Natural Heritage. We did get a DEP file number, and we did get comments from Natural Heritage, and they stated that they had no concerns with the project. So with that, I would recommend the approval of the project with the standard order of conditions, and also with the conditions that both hay bales and silt fence be used for the project, and that the original limit of work line in terms of tree clearing be held for the proposed work.
That's what I'm burning.
Thank you. Anything to add?
Again, yeah, this project was permitted in 2003, and the majority of the site had a proposed hay bale line set along the 30-foot no-touch. Actually, it was probably a policy at that time. But along the southern and northern portions of the property, we didn't, the original work limit, which was delineated by a hay bale line at that time, did not encroach as close to the 30-foot at that time. As you can see on the western side of the project, the existing tree line, which is basically the edge of the existing brush that's out there. There's an existing grassed yard around both the entire dwelling, and then between the grass and the brush line, it's pretty much void of any vegetation. It was stripped of all brush, and it's bare. So at the time of our survey, we determined that there was an area to the east side of the project where there's an existing pathway, and that brush line encroached within the 30-foot. We, as part of the mitigation plan, or planting plan, we're proposing to replant all that, similar to just the east side of the driveway. Between the first plan and the second plan, I asked the landscape designer to propose plantings on the east side of that driveway up to the existing brush line, which is just within that 30-foot offset at the northern end of that coastal bank. Just to the north of the existing house, between the first plan I submitted and the second plan that I submitted today, I was able to put the hay bale line back and follow the existing brush line, although it's a small area that is anticipated was outside of the work limit, although it's still outside of the 30-foot coastal bank offset, which would be permittable today under the local bylaws. So there was a small area of brush where the driveway turnaround was being constructed, and there's approximately about 2 feet of fill in the area of the driveway, and it tapers down towards the tree line. So to provide a decent slope, or a more adequate slope to plant, we did highlight on the second page a tree to be removed in that location, and then the rest of that area is just lower brush, which again will be replanted after the fill is brought in. So we felt that we worked with the agent to pull most of that area and maintain the existing brush line, although again it's over 30 feet in some areas. It's as close to 30 as close as 34 feet from the coastal bank. Again, we felt that that minor brush removal is permittable under today's bylaw.
thank you. Questions on the board?
Nothing.
Yeah. So all of this is pervious material now that's on the driveway, and I'm assuming that it's going to continue to be pervious and natural gravel if you're using gravel?
It's existing gravel driveway. They're proposing a shell and gravel driveway, so yes, not paved. Except, I believe, right under the leaching facility.
Would make sense.
It's
Like the,
proposed cobbles in.
Apron?
And Sandy, if we give the general conditions, then it'll be low nitrogen on all of this grass that's being.
Yes, low
done.
nitrogen is now as part of the standard order of
Right,
conditions.
so-
But I
but
have
it's
to,
always good
yeah,
to say.
it's always good to say, I have to admit, I was out there and I didn't see plush green grass. I was very pleased to see a lot of natural growing vegetation that didn't.
Cape Cod
The man
grass.
went over it with the lawnmower and I didn't notice anything being cut. It was that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, as opposed to some of the other sites that I visited, it was nothing but plush green all the way down to the water. But, so some of the grass area will be taken out along the eastern side of the house and be placed with plant beds, correct?
Correct. Some is plant beds and some is a
Hardscape.
hardscape and a little walkway. And then there's also a gravel and shell path. So yes, a lot of the grass will be coming out, but there's still,
Grass, if you define it as grass.
yes.
I said, well, they didn't use a lot of nitrogen here. That was my question. And anything else? Anybody in the audience for this project wants to speak against this project?
Close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, the hearing's closed.
You want to field it? You can. You know what you're going to say.
Okay, who wants to take a
Stab at it.
stab at it?
Come on, go ahead.
Oh, come on, guys.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I'll
All
try
right. So Dave, I just want to make sure, we're going to have, I'm not the one here.
Okay, hay
All
and,
right,
hay and silk fences.
All right,
I'll tell you what, I'll do it.
all right.
Motion to approve the standard stipulations along with the additional stipulations that hay bales and silt fence be used. And you mentioned cutting.
Original tree line.
No, we want to take it to the
Original tree line
To,
held?
Yeah, keep it up to the original tree line.
Those were your two conditions, correct?
Right.
Those were the two I heard.
Okay, that's it.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
No problem.
Please see Mr. Bichette before you start any work. Thank you.
That's another one of those hard areas.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320 of Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, June 19, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the notice of intent for Joseph Maderos, care of Gateway Survey Associates LLC, 29 Circuit Avenue, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to construct minor additions and construct deck and steps located on Assessors Map 129 B5, Lot 41, 119 Glen Charlie Road, East Wareham, Mass.
Bill, is that AC unit on next to you? Could you, I don't know, maybe it's just me. This one's off.
It's pretty warm in
It's
here.
getting warm. Could you turn that on for us? It's on. Thank you. It's getting a little warm in here.
All right.
Okey dokey. Please identify yourselves for the records.
So my name is Joseph Medeiros. I'm resident of Taunton, Massachusetts, 7 Stetson Street in Taunton, and I have property at 119 Glen Charlie Road in East Wareham.
Matt Langelier, Gateway Survey. We're here on behalf of Mr. Medeiros.
Mr. Bichette will speak to the project.
Trade you.
Yep.
So again, the project site is at 119 Glen Charlie Road, and the project involves the construction of additions and decks in the buffer zone to Spectacle Pond. A 14 by 16 foot addition, along with 2 smaller 7 by 7 foot additions are proposed. The 2 smaller additions are on the pond side of the house and would be approximately 42 feet from the pond. And the 4 by 14 foot deck is also proposed along the water side of the house, and this would be approximately 38 feet from the edge of the pond. Hay bales and silt fence are proposed between the work and the pond as shown in the plan. There's no grade changes proposed as part of the project. We did get a DEP file number for this project, so I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions for the project. And again, utilizing both hay bales and silt fence for the erosion control.
Thank you. Anything to add?
Yep, so my wife and I are looking to retire to this property in the next couple of years, so we just want to make it a little bigger. And as Mr. Pichette said, that we're looking to put a bedroom in the front of the house, a 14 by 16 addition, and then we're looking to square up the back of the house, which is roughly 2 small 7 by 7 areas. We're not getting any the building is not getting any closer to the water, and then we have an existing deck in the back, and we're just enlarging that deck. So we're still outside the 30 no construction zone, 30 feet no construction zone. So that's about it. I do have 2 letters from my abutters. So I'm 119 Glen Charlie Road. I have a letter from 121 and one from 117 Glen Charlie Road that I can share with the committee or read.
Okay. We'll put them in the file.
Okay.
Questions on the board?
No?
No.
Nope.
Anybody in the audience want to speak for this project? Or speak against this project? I'm seeing none.
Move to close?
I have a motion to close the hearing. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, the hearing is closed.
Move to approve standard conditions? Not sure. -2?
I have a motion to accept, to approve with the standard order of conditions.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Before you do any work, see Mr. Pichette for your written approval and your order of conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, June 19, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for Michelle and Michael La Montagne, Cloutier Family Trust, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571. For site work to include a shed, front porch, steps, patio, deck, and concrete boat ramp located in Assessors Map 129AA-1, Lot 121, 69 Agawam Lake Shore Drive, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Another
Thank
tough
you.
area.
Madam Chair, for the record, my name is Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Bichette?
This is the same.
So again, this is 69 Agawam Lakeshore Drive, and the application is filed as an after-the-fact application for some unpermitted work that was done at this site years ago. This includes the reconstructing of a retaining wall and ramp, the construction of sheds, and some other minor features. The applicant is trying to bring the site into compliance in terms of the permitting. There's no actual work proposed as part of this application. It's simply to try to, after the fact, if you will, permit the existing features. A DEP file number was issued for this project. There was a comment about whether or not the ramp might require a Chapter 91 license. I know Bob Rogers has been in discussion with DEP relative to this matter. And I guess you're still awaiting an answer on that, or you pretty much have that figured out that it wouldn't need the Chapter 91?
Actually, late in the day, I got an email from Mark Bartow basically saying that the very tip of the boat ramp, where it hits the ordinary high water line, that they felt like that the boat ramp would need a Chapter 91 license, or the very end of the concrete would need to be removed to make it non-jurisdictional under Chapter 91. So I have to coordinate that with the client and the future owner. Again, well, and I should just, one clarification, so that existing wood dock that the commission asked us to remove, so that has been removed from the water. So that was the only work under this notice. So, you know, I would still like to keep it as a no work notice of intent and order of conditions. And then I think we can make a decision, the current and future owner would make a decision on whether to license the boat ramp, and possibly in conjunction with a new dock, you know, it would be a separate filing. But, you know, again, we'd like to proceed with the certificate of compliance so that, well, get the order of conditions, almost immediately proceed with a request for a certificate of compliance, and then, you know, the new owner would either proceed to license the boat ramp or make a filing to snip the end of the ramp off and to eliminate that from as an issue. I can show you those two photos from today. It's the end of the boat ramp is out of the water today, but there's a stain mark where you would say ordinary high water, you know, has been washing on it.
Questions?
The
Now,
pond.
if the board approves this, you want a compliance as soon as possible because it's holding up the sale. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
How are we going to handle the tip of the boat ramp?
Well, I think, you know, it's, right now, it would be, we would, we're not proposing to do any work, so we would get the order of conditions, we would record it. We would not perform any work. You know, we're under notice from Chapter 91 that if the tip of the boat ramp remains, that we have an obligation to file for a Chapter 91 license. I don't believe that impacts the transfer of the property.
And who follows up with that?
It would be us and the owners and DEP, and, you know, I certainly have an email train with DEP. They made their official comments under this filing, so, you know, it's on everyone's radar screen, and just the current and future owners need to, you know, make a decision on that aspect of it.
Can we put a
Questions?
timing on it? Can we say, to file the 91, or
I mean-
decide to clip off the end
Yeah.
by a certain
What do we
date?
do in this case? I mean, if we're going to put out a standard order of conditions on the existing site, and they're going to come back and ask for compliance so they can sell the property, at what point do we put anything regarding the Chapter 91 or removal of the tip?
Well, the Chapter 91 permitting is sort of separate from the Conservation Commission. We're permitting projects or work under the wetlands laws, and it's up to the state to deal with the permitting relative to the Chapter 91. So it's, even though it's sort of something that we're involved with in a way, because you need an order of conditions to get a Chapter 91 license, we're not necessarily the ones who make judgments or issue permitting for Chapter 91 permits. You follow that?
Are you comfortable with?
Yeah, I've been to the property and.
So, to be in compliance, they still will ultimately either need to remove that piece or get a Chapter 91 license for it, but that's through DEP, through their waterways program.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Now you got me confused.
The question for the board is do you want to approve things as they exist, or do you not want to do that relative to the wetlands permitting? If you're comfortable with things as they are, then you can issue the order of conditions for this after the fact. If you, for some reason, don't want the boat ramp there because they put it in with no permits and you want it to be removed, that's up to the board's discretion. But if you're okay with the features as they exist, then the process would then be to issue the order of conditions and whatever actions the commission may want to take in terms of a fine or other type of a thing like that.
So I'm technically not happy with the boat ramp there, but I feel that it's a punitive, it would be punitive to the new people that have nothing to do with this, and we're holding it up, and they're kind of, they're doing all they can do to close this property, and I think that as long as that tip is addressed in the, in the near future, which we can't instigate, then let's close it and let them deal with that.
Well, the burden of the non-approved actions shouldn't be transferred to the buyer.
Right, it's pretty much what I'm
Should be the
trying to
owner.
say, yeah. It shouldn't be punitive to the new people.
So,
It shouldn't.
if we say that this is fine to keep going and, the owner takes care of it, are we basically saying that these houses and the shed, which they used as sleeping rooms, is actually up to code for us? Are we giving our blessing to this whole house and 7 different buildings and the dock and then the ladder hanging off the wall and then the pier that goes out from the ladder? Are we giving our blessing to that, and is that going to come back and bite us?
Well, as far as the dock, they've removed that, so that's not there anymore. Any new pier or dock would have to come back in for a new notice of intent. So there's no approval under this application for them to put a dock back in.
Okay.
As far as any building code matters, we don't govern over those things anyway. So that's up to the building inspector to determine if they're up to code. We're just looking at it in terms of, is the board okay with the building being within a certain distance of the wetlands and so forth? So that's all we're doing.
Okay, so are we by approving this saying that that little house, which was directly behind the main house, is far enough away from the pond? Are we giving this?
Well, at the time, there was no setback for that as far as a 30-foot no activity zone. This was done well before that occurred, so.
But Madam Chair, just that building, that's the bedroom now, so that was existing on the 1991 plans. So it was labeled as a shed on the 1991 plans, but the building, the structure was there. So that was something that, it may have been internally altered, but it's either a building code issue or it's a Board of Health issue. The Board of Health gave us our approval for the repair of the septic system. But that shed/cabin was an existing structure in 1991. So.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
Anybody, did I ask the audience yet? No. Anybody in the audience want to speak for this project, against this project? I'm seeing none.
No,
We
one.
had one over here.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I was looking over there. That, oh, sorry.
Hi, my name is Jean Hickey. I'm the buyer's agent, and I'd like to speak for this project. Bob's been working really hard about it. We're planning on closing next week. If we're hoping to get a compliance, otherwise we have to put it off again.
Yeah.
And both,
It's a little
both
too
the
fast.
buyers and sellers are, we're really trying to get this to work out.
So, yeah, we can go over we need to receive the order of conditions, record it, apply for the certificate of
right.
compliance, receive it, record it. So it's going to take,
Yeah, how long?
we'll be back at another meeting. So,
Okay, July 3rd.
weeks.
Okay.
Look in August.
I mean, but we can, close, if we close the hearing and we can approve the standard order of conditions, that gives you closer to getting it
Yes, yes.
off the books.
And to the extent that you could expedite the issuance of the order, we would appreciate it.
Anything else?
No.
Then I
Close?
close, motion to close the hearing? I heard that?
Move to close?
Yes, and I heard it second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, the hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Yep,
One more.
Not done.
that one.
Now that you hear, you have to stay here.
There was some, would you like to?
Yeah. I make a motion to grant with the stipulations that were stated, and also where the work was done without permits, I want to grant a $300 fine.
So that was a motion to accept the order of conditions with a $300 fine. I have that motion?
So moved.
No, I have a motion.
Second.
I heard a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Confused?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Would we provide that check before we receive the order of conditions?
Yes, that'll be a separate paperwork issue, so you can bring that to the conservation office or to the town clerk's office.
Okay, great, thank you.
One step closer.
For all of us.
Next one, please.
Actually, I don't think the 91 is a problem. If they needed approval last year, and a certificate of compliance, which they still need.
Next one, please.
Next one.
Sorry, thank you. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, June 19, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the notice of intent for D.P. Jr. and Carolyn Higgins, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571. To
He's gonna give us a
reconstruct
little-
portion of dwelling, add a new garage, replace driveway, and replace and relocate septic tank located on Assessor's Map 22, Lot 103, 38 Winship Ave, Wareham, Mass.
He gave us a bunch of them, I just said.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Bill Madden from JF Engineering here on behalf of Mickey and Carolyn Higgins.
And
Close off the deed.
Mickey Higgins.
here we have the green cards. Is this a new one?
Yes.
So what I looked at the other day is old. Right?
Well, it's only a minor change, but
You
this
want
is a
a big one?
revised plan,
Okay.
yes.
Want a bigger one?
Want a big one?
The one you have is.
Yeah.
Want a big one?
the one.
Yeah. Our eyes are getting tired over here.
This is the original? Or the
Both a new plan.
My bike was in worse.
Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
So the project site is at 38 Winship Ave, and the project involves the construction of an addition, garage, deck, driveway, septic work and dry wells in the buffer zone to a coastal bank at this site. A 12 by 40-foot addition with a 17 by 28-foot screen porch is proposed, and this is approximately 32 feet from the top of the coastal bank. A 24 by 42-foot garage is proposed, and this would be approximately 55 feet from the top of the coastal bank. There's a low retaining wall proposed around the south side of the garage. And dry wells are proposed to be installed to handle runoff from the structure. The existing crushed shell driveway is proposed to be paved. Stormwater structures are proposed to handle the runoff from that new impervious surface area as shown on the plan. The septic tank and pump chamber for the septic system would be replaced, but this would be tied into the existing leach field for the existing septic system. There's also 3 trees proposed to be planted down by the existing stone revetment. Hay bales and silt fence would be proposed between the work and the resource area. I really did not have any problem with the project, but I have not seen a DEP number for this project. I don't know if you've gotten anything, Bill. But so, without the DEP file number, I would have to recommend a continuance of the hearing to the next meeting for that issuance of the file number.
Did you get a DEP? Do you have a DEP? Did you receive one?
I did not receive a DEP file
you.
number today.
All right, your turn.
I think Dave did a fairly accurate job of discussing what's going on. Essentially, it's a site redevelopment project. The house is to be really reconstructed, an addition placed on it, expanded to some degree, to a pretty decent degree. Construction of a new garage, a lot of different site work going on out there, septic system components being relocated, parking areas, driveways, and what have you. So it's essentially a redevelopment of that existing site. It's a relatively old home. It is in need of some repair, and Mickey and his wife are proposing to do it right now, or to do it now. The resource area that we're dealing with is a coastal bank. It's delineated on the plan as the boundary between the Zone X and the VE 18 flood zone. We're maintaining the 30-foot no activity zone around the structure. We did indicate a silt fence about 15 feet, 20 feet away from the house. Dave and I did have a discussion about that. He thought that we might want to try to tighten it up a little bit bigger, a little bit closer to the structure, but I think that when we look at the materials and the equipment that's going to be used to construct the house, to do the addition, that perhaps the area that we have selected is appropriate just to get equipment, manpower, and materials on the site to be constructed. Any disturbed areas that are a result of the construction project will be just re-turfed, re-loamed and seeded and reestablished in the area. And that's pretty much it with respect to the coastal resource area that we're working in, and that what brings us before you tonight. We did place a couple of drainage structures in the parking lot. The way the grade is out there now, it slopes down to the house. The driveway slopes down to the house, and drainage had been a problem previously. One of our tasks was to ensure that we don't have any drainage problems entering into the house. So between a combination of some drainage structure, area well drains, some small vertical cobblestone curb edging, we believe that that'll be satisfactory to capture and direct all the runoff to our structures. We are proposing to put those into dry wells, pipe them, put them into dry wells, as we are proposing to do with our roof runoff as well. The roof runoff is also proposed to go into dry wells. There's no requirement to meet mass stormwater management on the site because it's a single-family dwelling, but we think that the inclusion of some of the some of the drainage structures, the way we've separated roof drainage from parking lot drainage and things of that nature, help enhance groundwater recharge and dispose of stormwater that could otherwise present a problem on the site.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think he said it wonderfully.
On the board?
I'm okay.
Sounds good.
No questions.
No?
Okay, now my turn.
Oh.
How much nitrogen do you put in your lawn? If anybody, here's a picture of that lawn. It's better than anything I've
We
seen.
were looking at that, and I said, maybe they're doing organic. It takes 3 years for organic people who do
Weren't we down
organic.
here
Are you
that
doing
long ago?
organic lawn?
Didn't we do something down here? I've been to this site before, and I know I have been.
We did several years ago, we did the dock and we did the stone revetment
Right.
at
That's what it was.
at the coast, along the coastline, shoreline, rather.
Down
That was a while ago now.
down to the existing boathouse. Okay. Now, you have a deck on the front of the house now. Is that going to be replaced?
Correct. Yes. So if I could, I will add something. The house is essentially shaped like an L today, with the short side of the L facing the street and the long side of the L facing the water. The short side of the L is the only portion of the house that has a foundation under it and has a heat source and is year-round and winterized. The majority of the house that faces the water is actually over 110 years old. Does not sit on a foundation. It sits on some masonry blocks. That porch that's there was put on by the previous owner, George Dekas, and we purchased the property from George Dekas in 2001. Now, I grew up in Wareham, but we've used this house since 2001 as a summer house, but we would like to now move forward, making it a year-round residence and put a foundation under it and rebuild that portion of the house. So that porch that's there will come down, and there'll be a new porch in its place.
But it's no closer to the water than what you have there now, if I'm reading this plan correctly.
You're absolutely correct. I think almost the entire majority of the house, with the exception of the screen porch, which is on the side, proposed screen porch, the entire renovation is within the existing footprint of the house and the porch.
Why a paved driveway as opposed to something that would allow more of a water flow into the soil? I mean, I know you have your dry wells all over to collect the rain off, the runoff. Is that why we're not using, you're giving up the crushed stones and not putting down pavers, but using macadam?
Well, I think that part of the vast majority of the reason why we're doing that is because there is a drainage problem on the site. And really, the only way to capture that stormwater and direct it to where we want it is, without causing any other problems, is really, I believe, through hard surface. If we don't put a hard surface there, if we did use gravel, then there's a sediment source that's always going to be discharging into our area drains and subsequently discharge into our leaching pits. So those will, they will present a problem over time if we have a surface that has a lot of fines or other material in it. And we find that it's just a better way of controlling the runoff. I think by placing the dry wells the way we have, we've kind of made up for the fact that we have provided an impervious surface as opposed to a pervious surface.
And the siltation barrier you have is both hay bale and silk fence. The two of them can together make up your siltation barrier, correct?
Correct.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience for this project, speak against this project? I'm seeing none. I loved your grass. I have a picture back.
You want the picture?
So we have to continue for the DEP number.
We are missing a DEP filing, so we're going to have to continue.
Yep.
So we're not closing the hearing, we're continuing until July 3rd. I need a motion.
Motion to continue.
Motion to continue
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So
Thank you.
we're waiting for some documentation, so.
How you doing, David?
Good, how are you?
Thanks very much.
Good to see you.
Okey dokey.
Thanks.
That's, with your hearing notes. So we're done with,
Knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Very good.
do you mind if we go down to, who are you waiting for in the back with the children? Yeah, do you want to go to, does anybody mind if we go to certificates of compliance?
Yeah.
Because people waiting, it's all right?
Yeah, that's good.
So is that right with you, David? Okay, so we're going to skip our, move down our agenda, talk about certificates of compliance, and Robert Mark. Mr. Brissette is pulling the paperwork together. I took you out of turn, and
That was why we just put that for no DP filing.
Okay. It was remiss, I've already scolded him.
Long night.
Longer than I thought it was gonna be.
Okay, so this, you want me to?
yep, please.
This project site is out on Onset Island, and it's known as 12 Plymouth Boulevard. The project here involved the reconstruction of a seawall at this location. The project has been completed some years ago, but a certificate of compliance was never requested. So they have done that at this point in time. I did go out to the island and took a look at the project. It is completed according to the plan. There was one area on one side of the wall where there was a little bit of erosion, where they had put some sandbags in to kind of hold that. But generally, the wall is built according to the plan as shown, so I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Anything to add?
No, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Koska. I'm here representing Mr. Mark. However, with us is Ken Barnard. They have, him and his family have bought the property. I've informed him of the ongoing situation with the sandbags. He, as a good property owner, will maintain that. The, up above the constructed wall, you have beach grass. There's a juniper that's growing there. More prolific is, I believe it's like a beach rose. I'm not exactly sure what kind, but the area is very stable. There was a decking that was put on the top. I refer to it as a vinyl decking. It's actually a pressure treated. And it wasn't on Charlie's plan, but it makes sense with the sheathing having spaces in it that somebody, you know, a little kid or even an adult could go down through. So they're about 16-inch boards, and they're just put on the top of the decking so that it makes it more secure and safe.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No?
I take a, need a motion?
Motion to close? Or
No.
motion
Motion to
to
grant?
grant? Okay.
A motion to grant.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, done.
Gone.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Next,
South Coast Hospital.
no, we're going to finish the certification of compliances.
Yeah, might as well finish it.
something that needs to be addressed on this one.
Who's this one?
This is second one.
Oh, Dos Amigos Realty LLC, 43 Leonard Street.
Brad's here for this one. That's the as-built.
That's the as-built.
Original.
Upside down.
And there's the plan. So what did they do wrong? What did they do differently?
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
John had mentioned that you had another plan maybe, or revised plan that someone did some topo on for this afternoon.
That was what I just submitted to you before the hearing, before this,
Oh, I thought that was for the other site.
That's different by a foot.
Where did that end up? Let me
Driveway. This driveway's bigger
Here's a
than
more
that.
recent as-built.
Well, wait a minute, which
This is a
one
more recent one. That's the site plan. Ignore the one,
That's the as-built, and
Yeah.
this is the, so throw that one away.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that looks better.
Okay,
That driveway was a lot bigger on that one. This one here.
It's the first time I'm seeing this, so I'm just taking a look at it here.
I believe the question was in regards to a riprap berm on the plan. The original design plan, when we surveyed it, there was a pre-existing small earthen berm along that common property line with the neighbor. The neighbor's grade of the property was lower than the grade of this initial property. So when it was constructed, the driveway itself, actually the house was elevated about 10 inches due to encountering groundwater when we were digging for the footing. So it ended up bringing the driveway up about 10 inches. We still provided a berm, which went up even higher than the driveway, so between what was originally there and what's there today, there was still a berm. It just happens to be our site's a little higher. We also provided a gravel driveway as opposed to pavement. So I think the question was, there was a berm along that side proposed. It just wasn't anticipated to have riprap as opposed to grass.
Yeah, so the issue is on the original plan, if you look at the original plan on the side of the driveway, the contours show the land just sort of matching into the neighbor's grade. Now there's this stone riprap on the side, and you have about 1 foot to 1.5 foot, almost in some places close to 2 foot difference in elevation between the two properties now. So again, this was not indicated on the original plan.
Yeah, so
This is work that's within a flood zone. Some of it is within the 100 foot to the wetland, which is on the other side of the road. So the commission has a couple of options. You could allow the work to stay there in its place and issue a fine for doing some work that was not originally shown, or you could require it to be removed and then the grades put to the way they were shown on the original site plan. But as was mentioned, the grades did change because the foundation elevation had to change slightly. Again, the applicant should have come into the commission and made this point known so that the commission could understand it. It is something that I think the commission could have permitted based on the resource areas that exist there, and the nature of the work that was done is not significant compared to the surrounding area. So it's really up to the commission's discretion as to how you want to handle the issuance of that certificate of compliance or not.
I got a question for you, David.
Yes.
So, from what I'm hearing from you, what I'm gathering, is the fact that you want him to come in and explain why he did that. But,
Well, that's what he's doing here tonight.
yeah, well, if we're not going to make him remove it, then we just fine him and put it to bed.
And again, yep, that's an option that the board has, and if that's what you want to do, then that's fine.
Why waste your time?
I came here to answer any questions and explain the reasoning of what was done. Again, it was roughly a foot. I didn't think that was a change that possibly warranted a second review, although we did still provide that type of berm to make sure that stormwater runoff was infiltrated on the property.
Yeah, but if you got a riprap berm, all it's gonna do is slow it down. It's not gonna, it's still gonna put water on this other guy's thing, but, which you're not supposed to be able to do.
Is there any flooding on your neighbor's, on the neighbor's property?
Actually, the neighbor brought the grade up with wood chips. They kind of cleaned up his side of the property as well, in between that, I think it's a garage structure. I don't think, it's wood chips, I don't think there was any fill brought in, but kind of leveled off the site in between the two properties.
Still think. Yeah, is the neighbor complaining? No?
No. No.
Is there anybody here wants to speak to this Leonard Street project? I'm seeing none, so. Okay. What is the desire of the board?
You did it wrong, so I think there should be some kind of a fine.
All right, issue a certification of compliance with a $300 fine for making a change without discussing or bringing it forward.
I'll be nice and giving and
300
kind of, huh?
300 should be appropriate.
Okay, never mind.
Okay,
That's fine.
so
That's my motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Abstain? Opposed? 500. Issue the order certification of compliance with a $300 fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Michael Fitzgerald.
That could make me turn the other way.
Finbar,
if we're gonna
LLC.
spend that kind of money on me.
Would you like to come up, please?
That's lobster, and I love lobster. My wife does not.
Good evening. I'm Michael Fitzgerald, a member of Finbar LLC, 379 Main Street, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will pull the paperwork together.
Okay.
So you're here to get this so you can pass papers?
Yes, ma'am.
This issue is relative to a project that occurred at this location, 377 to 381 Main Street, for a hazardous material cleanup. This was a project that was done some years ago, and the certificate of compliance was never requested. The cleanup work has been completed according to the order of conditions, and also reviewed and approved by DEP, so I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance for this project.
So moved.
Oh, I have a motion and I have a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Did you want to add anything?
No.
Thank you.
A wise engineer told me one time, when you're winning, you shut up.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. What do I do now?
You see Mr. Bichette for the paperwork.
Wicked nice guy.
Yeah, I would say by Monday it should be available.
I'll see you sometime next week. No worries. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Hi to Mary.
I will, thank you. Thank you again.
Okay, next one more certification of cert of compliance. Boy. Robert Fernetti.
Ready. That site I did not get to, so I'd like to hold off on that till
Okay.
the next meeting.
So we'll go back to continued hearings. We have a continued hearing for South Coast Hospital Group. I saw a letter requesting continuation until July 17.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second to continue to July 17. That's the hospital. Next one is Kenneth Nelligan,
Also to the 17th.
also wants to be continued until 7/17.
So moved.
I have a motion. I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Now, yes, we now have, we want to discuss the Carademas 37 Prospect Street. I see them here. Then we got some cleanup to do before we can leave. Minutes.
Yeah. I was looking at them, they look okay.
Okay.
You already have yours.
Guess I gotta add to my kit. I gotta put some, I got glucose tablets. I'm gonna start using them. It's staying, as long as it stays 71.
Do you want?
It's sugar-free.
This project site is at 37 Prospect Street, and this is a project that the commission issued an order of conditions for the construction or reconstruction of a seawall and some retaining walls. As we know from the last discussion we had on this, the project was not done in accordance with the approved site plan. And so the commission was going to look at the site for those who may not have been able to have gotten down there and decide how they want this issue to be addressed in terms of the fact that the plan was not adhered to. So that's essentially the nature of this discussion tonight, is for the commission to give the applicant a directive as to what needs to be done with this project.
Okay. Please identify yourselves for the records.
Dave DeVignan from Schneider, DeVignan, and Leone Engineering.
Russell DuBois, Parkside Excavation.
And Stephen Karadimos, homeowner.
Okay. Did anybody have a chance to go down and look at this?
Yeah, I did.
You did. Any comment on it?
Amazing wall.
It's an amazing wall. But that's not what was planned. Anybody else?
I'm still where I was the last time.
I didn't get there.
I guess my thing would be, do you have anything you would suggest to remedy this situation and what's happened?
We would like to file a new notice of intent for after-the-fact upper portion of the wall that wasn't done in compliance. What we're talking about in that lower view is the top 4 blocks. This piece right here, which was basically added on to the bottom row of blocks, from what we can tell. We haven't done an as-built survey of it, but that's what the photos show us.
and we came to a right angle wall because we could not put in the curved wall that was on the plan.
That's correct. So the lower wall, the seawall, appears to be in compliance as far as location, height.
That's the upper part.
The piece in the corner is what you see in this location. The ramp is consistent with the plan. And the wall, the lower wall, the two-tiered wall is approximately in the right location from what I'm gathering. I haven't done any measurements, so.
We have the middle wall, and then we're supposed to have so many feet of lawn, gravel,
It was supposed to be,
plantings, et cetera, and
there's
then
going to be
another wall.
a lawn platform here, and instead that lawn platform is at a 6-foot higher level. But I will point out that that's at elevation, we're talking between elevations 25 and 31. The velocity zone is VE 20, so we're well above the base flood elevation. So there really is no impact to the resource area. I mean, this is an improvement to what was there.
Well, there has to be something said about increasing how many feet in front of that house did you add by putting the middle wall all the way up to the top, as opposed to building the top wall? Did that come out right?
Yes.
I think how many feet did you add to the front of this property by building the wall that way?
The,
5 feet?
I didn't do any measurements, but the end result is the same square footage of lawn. It's just, instead of it being at elevation 25 and a half, it's up at elevation 31.
But it's a different usable piece of lawn than what you had planned.
Correct.
Yes.
I won't disagree with
I'm
that.
just,
But the wall as built complies with the performance standards for the Wetlands Protection Act. This isn't a bank that feeds the shoreline with sediment. This is the other category where, we had a seawall there, and this was a permitted wall.
I'm not going to, for me, I'm just upset that this happened without somebody coming back and saying we cannot build to the design we have. No attempt was made to contact us about a change in the plan. That is what is upsetting to me. I don't know about the rest of the board, but it was just hey, we'll do what we want. And I think that's what happened.
All due respect, I apologize for not coming in, but it was no malice intent to do.
There's the designer, there's the homeowner.
I guess, I looked at it as, for me to construct that,
I wonder if we can do that.
I totally understand. It was, you
Yeah,
couldn't do it. And by not following the engineering plan,
Oh, I agree. I most certainly should have notified the board. I did go back and, you had mentioned the last meeting about the seagrass. We did plant that area with 700 plugs of seagrass.
so
on
that's
that.
been taken care of.
Yes, it has.
The day after.
Yes. And it's all growing in. He has some pictures. It's all growing in quite nicely.
Your organic, she had a question.
Yeah, and you had a question on the, when they put that spray for the seed.
Yes,
I found out from the hydroseeder, it's an,
I can't hear.
um,
Wait 1 minute.
No, I don't, I just
Okay.
trying to clear something.
you had questioned the seed that was put down.
Yep.
It has it was an organic fertilizer. So the nitrate, I guess he explained to me on a regular starter fertilizer is 19%, or whatever the 19 is. The organic is only 9.
Okay. Now, that spray that was on there, has that grass started to root?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he has,
You have grass you have to cut, and then you have beach grass that you've planted?
yeah, the beach grass is on that extreme slope, so that would not get cut. Whereas the other part of where the grass is that can be maintained Is
not
that,
really growing
is that a elevation that you can maintain it?
How can you cut the grass between the, how can you cut your lawn between the?
It's like a little hill. He
No.
made it so you can walk down. You could walk down.
The ramp,
No.
the ramp is still there.
I'll try again. You planted beach grass,
Yes.
okay? And you've already seeded it with lawn grass.
Oh, it grew right through.
Oh, growth. Yeah, he
Grew
dug
right
it,
through.
He dug it all up. It's all.
The
seagrass.
seagrass would take over the,
Okay, so the
over
lawn
the,
grass is gone. And
Yes.
so you only have lawn grass where not permitted but can be mowed.
Yes.
well, the lawn grass was on the plan, where I put the lawn grass.
Okay,
And then the extreme slope that runs where the road comes down, that extreme slope has all the seagrass. See in the corner of the plan, you can see the seagrass?
yes.
So that actually goes all the way from, instead of that small area, I ran the seagrass all the way down to the point where the slope ends.
I guess to the board, what are our options, Mr. Pichette? They would come back before us with a new change order?
After
Order
the,
of conditions after the fact?
after the fact notice.
Well,
Or-
there's a couple of options that the board has. The board could say that they want the project built according to the original plan, as close as possible to that. Or if you wish to entertain some modification or what's there, then they would have to come in and file an amended order of conditions, or for an amended order of conditions, and then a public hearing would have to be held, and the commission would then vote as to what you would or wouldn't want to do with that proposed amendment. So those are really the two options that you have at this point.
There is a third. That would be to file a notice of intent.
Amended order.
Well, you can't.
Rather than amend the order,
You can't really do that, though, because you already have an order, and how are you going to get a certificate of compliance on that order?
because what we would propose under the new notice of intent would be an after-the-fact permit for the upper level of that wall. In other words, for this quadrant of the project. And should that be approved, then that aspect of the project would be supersede that aspect of the project under the first order.
Doesn't really, because you have an original order with a plan that's referenced, and a certificate of compliance then has to be issued for that. So you can't really split that piece of it out of it. You know what I mean? You've got an original order that references a site plan. So you either amend that order of conditions, or you build it according to the plan. You know, I don't know that you can just file a new notice of intent and just say, oh, I'm not going to look at the old notice of intent anymore.
No, it would be for permission or an approval that would override a portion of the prior order.
Well, that's what filing the amendment would do. That's basically what that would do.
I agree, but I think there's a third option.
Well,
That's what I'm pointing out.
so we're looking at filing a amended order of notice of intent, building to what was on the initial plan. I think those are really our two options. I'm not comfortable with the third. I'm not comfortable.
Can I ask you, how tall is that wall from the ground?
I believe it's about 15 feet.
It's, you know, you had questioned the structure of it. It's the same, some of the board members, that's the same height as the height
This
that's
one, right?
on the driveway. It's the same tier of blocks.
It just didn't come in the steps that it was supposed to.
Correct.
As far as the location of that wall, you said you haven't really done any measurements to determine if that wall is in the location of, let's say, what was supposed to be the lower wall or not. So that could be further out than that even. We don't know that.
I don't know for a fact, no.
Right. So even that lower wall where that was supposed to be, this new wall could be even further out than what that shows, potentially, until you do the measurements. So, you know, these details, I think, need to be clarified, and again, that would come through in the amended notice, because you have to obviously provide a plan that's gonna reflect the existing conditions.
Yes, we would have to do an as-built plan,
Right.
essentially,
Excuse me, Dave.
move forward.
I also, on that plan, I scaled everything off. So I scaled off the, where the existing patio is and just measured off of the existing patio and squared that up. So it should be exactly where it's supposed to be on that plan.
Can I ask you a question? If you built them as the plan called for, you'd have two shorter walls, one above the other, but you wouldn't have one big wall blocking everything.
You'd have, the lower wall would have been, the lower wall would have been 9.5 feet, and then the upper wall would have been 5.5 feet.
Right, but it would have been back from the 9.
Correct.
It would have right, the lower wall would, essentially what I,
This corner would be squeezed back to here.
Big difference.
We're talking about this piece right here.
right,
Now read that plan right,
Yeah,
15
15.
feet from the edge of the middle to, okay.
yes, 15 feet.
Well, theoretically, by putting the wall as a single, one on top of the other, you'd gain 15 feet in front of the house you didn't have.
At that level.
At that level, you had the 15 feet below.
Yeah, but you don't have that anymore. Yeah, okay.
So I guess, though, the real thing is, you know, if the board has to kind of come to a consensus, because if you are okay with potentially the change, then they can file for the amendment. If the majority of the board really doesn't want the change, then you're just wasting their time and money to tell them to go file for the amendment, and then they come in and you say no, and then they still have to refix it, and they've just wasted money on engineers and so forth. So, you know, at some point, I think there has to be a call made as to what the board wants to see with this particular project.
Well, they run into the same situation if they turn around and filed another notice. They could still get refused.
Oh, of course, yeah, that's what I'm trying to
And it-
avoid,
and
is
it
them
costs-
spending a lot of time and money doing this if the board kind of
It
has an
costs more
idea.
for a notice than it does.
Well, slightly more, but
Yeah.
the fee difference isn't great. It's a little bit, but
So they're either an amended order notice of intent, or they build the plan.
or as close to plan as can be
Possible,
done.
because I know you can't go around the corner.
But that's what I'm trying to maybe get to, because I don't want the engineer and the applicant to spend another couple $1,000 on
Yeah,
plans and then then the board says, nope, don't want it anyway. So, again, that's where I think things should be at. If the board
Take down.
is comfortable to come to that conclusion tonight, great. If you still want to think about it, that's up to the board, or if you want to require some information to see where this thing actually is on the ground, you could ask for that too, just to know that.
All right, but if we do that, and then what are we gonna do? Are we gonna disturb it? Are we gonna rip it up?
To the mic.
You know? Is it, what's gonna be the final outcome? If we turn around and deny them, are we gonna make them tear that all out?
Yeah, and build it
That's
to the
gonna
way,
make-
and to build it to the way it's shown.
And that's gonna make a bigger disturbance.
Well, temporarily, any project makes a disturbance, but they made a disturbance when they first put it in. It's,
Yeah.
any project's gonna disturb the area temporarily until it's built, and then it's built.
Because that second wall shouldn't never been curved, it should have been at right angles.
Does look like a
Correct.
Well, no, the original plan showed it to be curved.
Curved, it should never have been curved, it should have been to right angles, which is what it was.
No, it's backwards.
One
It's
side, but not the back side.
correct. That side, we had a curve going into the hill. It was done at a 90. The other side, we had the 90.
So
Sandy,
here's a choice.
Yeah.
You say to the, if you really are going to say, give me a modification to your notice of intent, that sort of saying to them, you're going to approve it. Or you're going to say, build to make the change to your existing plan.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I
yes.
mean, to me, if you're gonna ask them to do a change to the notice of intent, that sort of says you're looking forward, you're looking to the possibility of forgiving them for not building the plan. Am I, yep, yes.
I think you're right, but I'd like to know, if I can just ask a question. Have you had conversation with your neighbor who is upset over your wall?
They haven't approached us. They actually contacted me prior, had no idea they were upset about that. They mentioned something about a wall down below. They thought there was some disturbance, and Russ went and checked it out. I spoke with the neighbor. Not once. I saw him. They don't say anything to me about that. They wave, say hi, and smile. So,
Well, that's a little bit different than the experience I had, because the woman was basically in
yeah,
tears
nothing.
in my office. So.
They over there have the construction people over there. I don't know if they're trying to build a deck off their house. I don't know what they're doing over there. I don't, at this point, but they haven't said one thing besides smile and wave hello.
Yeah.
So if they had that, that's why, I mean, the whole thing, I mean, and as Russ knows, I mean, they contacted me back in April. I was actually gone, my wife, we just had a baby. I was in Florida when this all was going down. I came back, Russ, Russ does good work. I trust him what he did. I came back, and had a letter from the neighbor, a handwritten letter, just talking about the wall, because I wasn't home, and I called him, and not once did he say anything about that wall. He just asked if I was planning on putting big arborvitae trees. That's all. And I wasn't even done. That's all.
Which neighbor are you referring to?
Talking about the Maggi.
Yeah, that's the one who was
Yeah.
upset.
Well, I could tell, because, I mean, after we came, right shortly before we came to the meeting, I mean, the woman drove by my wife and gave her a nasty look. I mean,
Yeah.
but not once said anything. The husband waved, say hi, That's why I was extremely shocked by the whole thing, because if they approached us when they sent the letter about their wall below being disturbed, Russ was there with his machine, and I was kind of surprised that I figured that if it was an issue, I mean, somebody would have went and put a stop work order. I had no idea. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we didn't have an idea, because we'd been there several times, and things were under construction, and,
Yeah,
we didn't
talked
go
about the
back
lower wall.
we didn't go back while the upper wall was being built.
And that was being done for a while. And again, I totally agree. Now after hearing all this stuff, it should have been built to spec. And I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't care. I would have been perfectly happy with the way it was in the plan. That's why I agreed to, I wouldn't have, but unfortunately, he had some construction issues and he did it. And at that point, I wasn't around. We had a baby. It was costing way too much money. I just wanted it done. And it wasn't any malice. There was no malice intent trying to block their nothing. And I wish if they were that upset, which they expressed their concern to you guys, they would have approached me as a neighborly thing to do and said something, because he was there for 10 months. 10 months.
They weren't there, though.
They were there. Oh, they were there. They were there. I have a dated letter.
They claim they came back to see this built.
Yeah, no, they've been back and forth, and I have a dated letter before it was even done. So if they were that upset, I find it extremely odd that they wouldn't have came to you and we wouldn't have heard something, and it could have been easily rectified. I mean, Russ would have had no problem. It wasn't even.
I would have been able to explain to them the situation, at that point, I mean, it wasn't, it was, the decision was strictly made on the site for installation. It had nothing to do with gaining any yard or anything. I mean,
if anything, it blocks my view too. I look at the grass.
He had existing structures that you have to be able to maintain that. I mean, I can't have a catastrophic failure of all the stuff that he has built above. That was the reason why we did that.
But if the engineer designed this plan, then you're basically saying that the engineer designed a bad plan.
Well, no, I mean, I've worked with Dave for 25 years.
Right.
And we'll bounce ideas back and forth. When he designs something on a plan, and you go and you build it in the field, I mean, you can see that in any trade in the industry. You always come up with something that you thought would be the perfect scenario, and then when you get in the field, that's why there's change orders.
Right, we understand that, but this is a significant change. This isn't a minor deviation. This is a major difference in the plan. So obviously, there are always those circumstances.
It was a significant change to the wall going forward instead of being back. the same amount of height, the same amount of blocks were there. That's why in my head, when I was constructing it, I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't know anything about the coastal bank and all that, because I would have never, ever not came to you if I would have known that this is the implication.
It's the perception of a 14-foot wall versus a
9-foot wall.
7 and a,
Well, 9.5 and a 6.
7 and 9 and a 6, which is with
But the 6
15
would have been
feet.
back from the 9.
Yeah,
Right,
and,
15 feet.
and if,
Being straight up 15 feet.
Right.
and if you have an engineered site plan that's very detailed, you know, again,
All right.
it's just not something that just can be changed. It's referenced in the order of conditions, and I get what you're saying, but
And I understand your position because you've based it on the plan that you looked at and you approved.
exactly, and that's
Yes.
what we're supposed to be requiring to be built.
In all due respect, even when I look at a plan, I'm looking at a piece of paper, I go on the site, and then I have to come up a plan of how I'm gonna maintain everything and build this wall. So it's not just, you look at a plan and okay, boom, we can put it together.
Right, but then when you are there and you see it, and you say, geez, it's gonna be an issue, you go to the engineer and say, Dave, this is a problem, I'm not gonna be able to do this. That didn't happen, it just got changed, and
Well-
so,
Okay, board, do we make them build to the initial plan? Or do we have them come in with a change of a notice of intent with a 14-foot wall? Maybe they do something with the 15 feet they got that they shouldn't have had, as opposed to making it a patio, put in some plantings or something that prevents them from using that 15 foot as the additional lawn,
No,
walk space?
no, I won't even entertain that, don't even.
You
go
want to
there.
give them that additional 15 feet?
Nope, I'm not going to give them extra. You know what? We've been sitting here
Yeah.
arguing with this about, what, half hour?
Yep, second time.
Watched you throw you under the bus, and then you throw him under the bus, and everybody's throwing everybody under the bus, and I'm tired of it, you know? I'm not gonna turn around, you've been fined. Okay, so I have constraints because of the state of refining or finding more. So, my feeling, build it the way it's supposed to be, and as of this date, you get fined $300 a day until it's done. I can do that.
That's one option. Alyssa?
I'm just tired of listening to it. I've sat on this board for over 20 years and listened to people and tried to be compassionate with people and everything else, and they turn around, all right, I'll spend an extra $300 and I get an extra 15 feet of lawn.
No, all due respect, that did not, and we're not trying to throw anyone under the bus.
No.
We're just
that's-
explaining how the situation came about.
Yeah, well,
And it's all on me, it's not on the homeowner. Has nothing to do with the homeowner.
I'm going to-
That's my recommendation to the
I'm going
board.
to stop. Ask the board.
Build it to the original plan.
Build to plan.
Build it to the original plan.
Build to plan. Build to plan. Build to plan. Build to plan.
All due respect, that's gonna cost about $30,000 to fix that. That's not an easy fix, and
No, it's not an easy fix. We know we're disturbing it all over again in order to build to plan.
if I could have built it that way the first time, I would have built it that way.
Well, the engineer set it up that way.
Okay.
He went to school and he was trained to do this. That's his job.
I went to school for engineering as well.
All right, then, but he's got his stamp on that plan, not yours,
You're right.
right? No, I'm tired of doing this. I'm just tired. Somebody's gotta draw the line somewhere. We give them a time frame that they got a remedy there, and if they don't, $300 a day. And if I think I'm correct, I don't know, David,
Now, but
you
the
back
only
me on that.
thing that I'm hearing that could not be done was the curve on that side of the wall, correct?
I just want to say one thing, too. I mean, I'm not arguing with you guys about building the plan, but I can tell you right now, it wasn't put out to get 15 feet of lawn, because I would have actually been happy to the original plan that I
But that's what, it may not
That's
have
what
been,
happened.
but that's what happened by
I
doing the two.
I understand,
at
but I just want to let you know that this is costs an astronomical lot of money. I mean, way more money than was ever even planned. So for you to say that $300, you don't understand. Like, I came to you guys hearing through the grapevine that the neighbor was upset. They never once came to me. My wife and I came here out of our goodwill. We called you, Dave Pichette, and said we'd like to come rectify the situation.
He was gonna get you anyway.
All right, well, then why he should have came? He should have came. I wish he came earlier.
When he found out about it, he would have got to you.
Well, I mean, he didn't
It
though.
might not have been this week, but he would have got you.
I mean,
If I may, the reason we're here is I met Dave at an on-site on another job, and he asked me about the project, and I told him we hadn't worked on it for 8, 9 months or whatever it had been, and I wasn't really familiar with it, you know, the progress of what was going on. And he told me about there may be an issue there with the wall being not constructed in one particular location and whatnot. And I immediately contacted both gentlemen, and we proactively then called Dave and set up to get on the agenda to discuss the matter. So I just respectfully ask you to take a step back on the $300 per day. I mean, we came to the board as soon as I found out. I'm not even on the clock. I just came and I said, look, guys, we should come and talk to them at the next meeting that's available, and we did. And we only continued it for a month because Russ was going to be on vacation the last meeting, and that's why we're here this evening. So we're just trying to...
Was the wall built by that time?
The wall was finished back in April?
End of April.
Yeah, so what happened from my viewpoint is that the neighbor came in and said, this was when the neighbor was all upset.
Oh, can you just say when they came? I'm just curious, because like around what date time did they come? Because they approached, that letter was dated the 31st of March. That's the first I heard anything of it.
Yeah, this is probably around that time, maybe shortly thereafter. I don't know an exact date, to be honest.
Right,
But she
sure.
just came into my office.
Totally
And
got
she
it.
said, we've just come back to the area recently, and there's this huge wall built next to us, and how did that get approved? And I said, well, let me pull out the plan, and I showed her the two-tiered wall, and she said, you know, the wall that's there doesn't look like this plan. And I said, well, this is the plan we approved. So at that time, I had not been and seen what was actually there. So I didn't know what she was talking about. Then I went over there and saw what was there versus the plan, and that's how this all came to a
But
head.
can I just ask you why you didn't just like tell Russ? I mean, you came down, I know there was an issue way back in December or January, and
No, I didn't know then. What I'm saying is I only knew after the woman came to my office and approached me. When I went down there a couple times when Russ was working on it, that was when the seawall was being built.
Way down.
Yeah. I didn't
was in the winter.
I didn't even honestly envision that something like this was going to go on. I mean, he was building it to the plan, where the seawall was in the right place.
Sure.
So we visited there a couple times to go over some other matters as far as erosion control and stuff. But generally speaking, I was just assuming he was going to follow the plan. And the next time I went down there, the wall was already in place. I stopped in, like I said, a few times when the seawall was being built, but I didn't go back there every week to look at what was going on, you know?
Right.
We have 100 projects
Oh,
going
no,
on in
I
town, and so
understand. I mean,
things were going fine as far as I was concerned at the time, and so I just didn't go back there until the woman came in, and I said, I'm showing you the plan. This is what the plan is. What you're saying doesn't make sense. And she said, well, to me, there's a huge wall there. And so that's when we looked into
Sure.
it more and found out that it wasn't built according to the plan. And that's when I said to Dave, I said, did you know that this was the case? And he said, no, I didn't know that. I haven't been involved with the project anymore. And this is how we came to be where we're at.
Sure.
So as far as issuing an enforcement order, I was going to do that, but you had called me coincidentally, kind of in the same time frame that I spoke to Dave and he talked to you.
sure. I mean, that's,
And that's how we got to where we are. So yes, technically I did not issue an enforcement order because you were already coming in anyway.
Because
But I
we
was
just
going
heard,
to
yeah.
do that if you didn't, or if we
I
hadn't
understand.
spoken.
I understand.
So that's just where how things progressed.
Sure.
Sandy, I'm thinking that we talked about this $300 a day, but if you have to rebuild it, can you get this pulled together in 6 months, say by December, with no fee per day?
To be honest with you,
Don't know where to.
I don't know financially how I can take that apart and do that. So I don't really have a clear answer for that, because the job took so long, I didn't really make much money on it anyways, which has nothing to do with the board.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're not, what I'm saying is if there's no fee, and I know that it's a big job, that you would be taking the wall apart and putting up as it was planned, and would that be done in about 6 months' time? No fees per day.
Okay, would you be, chance to talk among yourselves and come back at the next meeting to give us a time frame for when this will be corrected?
We can do that.
Okay,
Or submit something in writing rather than show up.
It's fine.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
When's your next meeting?
July 3rd,
3rd, okay.
if not the 17th. 3rd is the next meeting.
Tentative?
Huh?
Is it tentative because
No,
of
it's,
4th?
we've confirmed that we will be
Okay.
here as a quorum for the 3rd.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a Chapter 61A property, AD Makepeace would like to take it out of agriculture and put it into commercial.
So
The
moved.
document's in your folder.
Yep, looked at it.
This is the
Above
one
board.
that we've approved the solar field on
Yeah.
already. So as part of the requirements of them requesting to remove the property from Chapter 61A, they have to ask the
Sir.
Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen if the town wants to purchase the land. In this case, I would recommend that
We
we
don't want it.
say we
We're
don't
not
want
inter-
it.
yep.
And that way, our comments are to the selectmen on it.
Yeah, granted.
So we just need a motion.
I
to
need,
s-
So moved, yeah, okay, second.
I have a motion that we're not
Upset.
interested.
You
We're not
word it.
interested.
You word it, we don't want it.
We did our
CPC
job.
already said
Yes.
we're not
ours.
interested, so
More
they're
tax money.
not interested.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's
town gets
right.
some back
We
taxes.
need it.
I thought we talked
we gotta
about
do
Mr.
something.
Smith being reappointed.
True, and as I
Did
said.
we
don't
make
know
a
that I
motion?
don't think we officially made the motion.
Okay, I need a motion that we submit Mr. Smith's name as a reappointment to Conservation Commission.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion, I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Please-
Yay!
thank
Good
you very much.
job. Good job.
You're glutton for punishment, aren't you?
I think the enforcement order we'll take it up at the next meeting. Then we
Continued.
have 3 minutes to go through. January 2nd, all 3 sets of minutes were sent out in the mail with the agenda earlier this week.
They were beautiful.
So,
Personal comment, I reviewed all 3 of them online, and I have no problem with any of them.
That's good.
I'm going to go, I need to be separate, January 2nd,
Yeah, that was, I
I
was chair.
approved?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. March, so it's
So
1,
moved.
2, 4, wait a minute, 401 for January.
Yeah, is that the one I gotta sign?
Yep. March 2nd, Mr.
Yes.
Smith.
So moved.
Wait, Mr. Smith, you were not here for March 2nd.
You still want
All in favor?
Aye.
4001? You're abstaining?
Doesn't matter. No.
41,
have to abstain.
410.
Yeah, you don't have to abstain on this.
And April 3rd, Mr. Smith, you were not here. All in favor, April 3rd?
So moved.
minutes?
Accept.
410.
Yeah, that was,
You okay there?
right?
Mm-hmm.
You want a Tootsie Pop?
There, you can sign that one.
I got 4. I bring them for
So
friends.
I see nothing else on this agenda.
Good thing.
Please say the magic words.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a
Second.
motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
God, 9:45. Sorry, Mr. White.